Temple of America. They really believe that, wholeheartedly. And I understand why, because the rhetoric is so strong. But the Prophet Noble Drew Ali told us that Allah said only, only Allah guides the destination of this movement.
There you
You
go.
see what I mean? So when we recognize that, we got to understand that the Moorish Science Temple of America is being guided by Allah alone. So if it's being guided by Allah alone, and you look at some of these so-called Moorish Science Temple of America, you know that ain't Allah.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I'm just saying.
Absolutely. So we live on Facebook right now, and I'm going to share this. If you're on Facebook, I ask that you share it. And I think that it's important that the public understand, because there are many people out here that is basically flat out lying. And this lie has been going on for far too long. It's been going on for far too long. So it's only right that the record gets set straight. You know what I mean? I'm gonna share it one more time. That's good enough. It's only right that the record gets set straight. So let me get on it. So and feel free to chime in, throw your hands up if you like to. So let me get with Marzouk Razine L first. Marzouk Razine L, he had asked a question before we got started. What was that question, brother? Your mic is muted.
Islam. Was there any early literature that's still out on the movement in the early years?
When you say literature, what do you mean by literature? Like some writings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, or some
Yes, any
teachings?
minutes or any news, anything?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of the news that we have, that I have, is, I think I probably got one of the bigger collections. And in fact, I'm going to be putting out uh, um the Moorish guides, scrapbooks, and research book within a couple of weeks. Where all of the information that I have collected, I'm gonna compile it. I'm gonna put it in one book, and it's going to be for the public. So when the public listening to the noble temples, they'll be able to follow along with the historical account. So I'm going to, not only I'm gonna put the Moorish guide articles in there, I'm gonna also put articles from around the country, whether it's from Cleveland, whether it's from Baltimore, whether it's from Detroit. I got articles from all around the country about the Moorish Science Temple of America. In fact, I got the Moors doing a funeral here in Baltimore in 1928 article. I got an article where the Prophet Noble Drew Ali was teaching at the YMCA in Ohio. Uh, 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 um, I can't think of which part of Ohio, but in Ohio, it's an article. And, so I'm going to be compiling all of this because it's time for the public to know exactly what the Moorish Science Temple of America looked like, as opposed to what the public has been receiving from those who've been putting out misinformation and disinformation. So today I'm going to discuss who is the real Moorish Science Temple of America. Family, I don't want to bust your bubble, but I'm going to have to. When I say who's the real Moorish Science Temple of America, I want you to really understand what I'm going to explain. Administratively, after Emeliel, as a national organization, the Moorish Science Temple of America was no more as a national organization after Emeliel. I want you to hear that little sound effect. Breathe hard. After Emeliel, as a national organization, it didn't exist. In name, but in practice, no. In operation, no. After Emeliel family took it into their home. They took it into their home. Now, the whole life of Emeliel, when the prophet transitioned, it was Kirkman Bey trying to take the Moorish Science Temple of America out of the hands, from a legal standpoint, of Emiliel. It started with Claude Green, Kirkman Bey, Lomax Bey trying to take the Moorish Science Temple of America out of the prophet's hand. Remember, the prophet talks about the Moor on the high road and the Moor on the low road. Remember Kavit Emptor? These were real Moors on the low road trying to snatch the organization from Prophet Noble Drew Ali. So in the process of trying to remove Prophet Noble Drew Ali, accusing him of child molestation and hoping they will lock him up. Although when he came back, Claude Green was unlived and he got locked up for that. He got released. And then he got stabbed and beaten in front of his house. And a few months later, he transitioned from his womb. So to the point that who is the real Moorish Science Temple of America? The leader that was in charge when the prophet was on tour of the temples was Emiliel. The one that was appointed by the prophet to be in charge of the Moorish Science Temple of America in the absence of Prophet Noble Drew Ali was Emiliel. Emiliel says that everybody was there when the prophet appointed him. In fact, in 1929, Kirkman Bey solicited Emiliel for the title of Supreme Grand Advisor. If Emiliel was not the leader, then why would one solicit Emiliel for the title? How does Grand Advisor ultimately becomes leader of an organization that doesn't even have that title as a part of the organization? It's a made-up title. So even in getting that title, who sanctioned the title? Somebody tell me who sanctioned the title. Arno, who sanctioned the title after it was presented?
Sanctions the title of what? I was on another
Grand
conversation.
Advisor. Grand Advisor.
Some bogus crew.
No, listen to me. When I say who sanctioned it,
you said who sanctioned
rubber stamped it?
Oh, the appointment by Emiliel?
Emiliel. There you go. There you go. Emiliel. So who is the leader?
Emiliel.
Emiliel. Now,
that ain't no secret.
And if he sanctioned it, right, he has the power to rescind it, right?
All the time.
And that's what he did. So thank you, brother. So the whole point of the matter is we speak of this stuff and we keep covering this stuff so people coming in won't be confused and misused and abused by misinformation. And so to answer the question, all we got to do now is follow the path of Emiliel. We know that Emiliel disappeared in 1934. And as the story goes, he got sick and he went back to Mississippi. But we know that he won court cases and all that. But from the administrative point of view, when he went back to Mississippi, from an administrative national point of view, the movement as a national administration was defunct. Do anybody understand that? Anybody dispute that? It was defunct. And when I say national, that means all of the temples were not corroborating or cooperating with Emiliel. All of the temples were not rolling in the Rotarian complexion as designed by Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And Emiliel family took temple into their home. So from a national perspective and from an administrative perspective, there was no national Moorish Science Temple of America administratively, nor operating from a legal standpoint. Now, here is the cross section of the road. If Emiliel was appointed by the prophet that we know, if Emiliel was sanctioned by even judges from a legal standpoint, as we know, how is it that someone else ultimately is recognized by the Secretary of State? How does that happen? Now, here is the caveat to that. The Moorish Science Temple of America is a holy and divine movement. So if a thief and a crook is able to get a piece of paper and file a piece of paper in their name, how can the thief be the head of a holy and divine movement? A thief, some kind of way they got a hold of that paper. I hope y'all connecting the dots. Some kind of way they got a hold of that paper. A thief and a crook cannot be the heir of something divine. I don't care how they dress. I don't care how they talk. I don't care what the Secretary of State say. The thief cannot be the holder of something divine. That's the part that we got to get through our head. So the Secretary of State can say that someone is a 501c3. So the Secretary of State can say that someone is a nonprofit and called Moorish Science Temple of America Incorporated, but they cannot be the holy and divine movement because you cannot steal something holy and divine. That's the part we got to get through our head. And people keep giving credence to the Moorish Science Temple of America Incorporated under the leadership of R. Love L. R. Jones Bay. They keep giving credence to that, but they have never explained how did they get the corporate filing. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali didn't give it to him, neither did Emiliel give it to him. How did they get it? Explain to us. I bet you never get that answer. How did you get it in your hand? The corporate filing is a piece of paper that should have been held by Prophet Noble Drew Ali or Emiliel. How did you get possession of it? I already told y'all they got possession of it from Claude Green, the business manager. But we want to ask them, how do you get possession of it? Once again, a thief cannot be the head of a holy and divine movement. Let's get that out the way. Now let's get into the educational part of what the prophet did, if you don't mind. Let's get into the educational part of what the prophet did. All right. Now I'm going to bounce around a little bit. I'm going to bounce around a little bit and get into the history of this. Because most people be thinking that the prophet was at 39040 and 39040, this, that, and the third, Indiana Avenue. The prophet was everywhere. They was never there. You know what I mean? So one location, one of the original locations of home office was 3229 Indiana Avenue. This is from the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, Divine Constitution, and Bylaw. 3929 Indiana Avenue. Nobody never quote that address. We're going to throw a few addresses out there. A location of a temple during the time of the prophet, after home office moved to 3603 Indiana Avenue, where we went at this convention, was 3966 Vernon Avenue. Home office at this point was 3603. I'm just jumping around some things right now, just to throw some numbers out there and history out there. And then we're going to get into how the movement evolves, right? So in this picture right here, we see Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and this picture is basically the picture where all Moors had in their temple. Most people right now use the sit-down picture. During the time of the prophet, this is the same picture that is on the prophet, behind the prophet where the two flags at. This was the picture. This was the picture that the Moors would fly in their temple. And as you can see the date, 1925. See the date right there? And the same photographer did all the pictures for the Moorish Science Temple of America. 1925. All right? So that's what we got to understand. So the first temple, which I said I wanted to bring the dates out and the name and whichever, but temple number 1 was started October the 15th, 1925. Hence, convention is October the 15th. The annual convention, if convention would start in September, then that's not annual. Do anybody know what annual mean in the ink? It's a complete cycle. The prophet put this in science, but basic science that we should understand. Annual is a complete cycle. The prophet first convention was October the 15th to commemorate the founding of the first physical temple. And we don't change that. All right? So, with that being said, let me go a step further. We're about to get into it now. Here we go. Now, let's get right here. Let me see if let me move this out my way. When we get into this, right, we're going to get into the nitty gritty of it. Let me blow it up a little bit so people can see, because I like people to see what I'm talking about. When the prophet finally incorporates the organization, he incorporates it under Moorish Temple of Science. Do anybody know what type of corporation that was? Well, let me help you. It was a civic organization. It wasn't a religious organization. It was a civic organization. Let me tell you what a civic organization is. A civic organization is an organization that exercises their political power by organizing people into civics in order to apprehend the power of policy and economics. It was a civic organization called the Moorish Temple of Science. And that was incorporated November the 29th, 1926. Let me get to the other side. I'm sorry. I wanted to show you something else first. 1926. Totally civic. Why is that important? Because the prophet, this is the part that they not going like. When the prophet went from a civic organization or corporation to a religious corporation, he left the civic organization in So when the prophet was operating the Moorish Temple of Science out of the Secretary of State, it was a civic organization, not a religious organization. Let me stop for a minute to make sure everybody follow me. Because people at the Secretary of State running to the Secretary of State. Raise your hand if you understand what I'm saying with that. It was a civic organization. It was not a religious organization. So if one is so focused on the Secretary of State, you should be more focused on what? Civics. Because that's what it was. And no one can deny this. There is not a Moorish American out here that can deny this. You know what I'm saying? And civics is bringing people together, educating them on the power of numbers and political power that translate to economic power and by default brings the group into power to control their own destiny. Civics. All right. So we got that out the way. Now we're going to go to the next point. What the prophet would do next is he will go from a civic organization into a religious corporation. But first, let's read the filing on the civic organization. And I want you to pay close attention to this because the prophet tells you what he's doing. It says, Drew Alim, James Lomax, Johnny Reynolds, Eddie Watts. This is November the 26th. This is the filing. Eddie Watts, Sammy Rucker. Let me read it to you because people be talking about we ain't citizens and all that kind of stuff. Citizens of the United States. In other words, the names above are citizens of the United States. Whether Moors on the fringes don't understand what citizenship is neither here nor there. But on this paper, Drew Ali, James Lomax, Johnny Reynolds, Eddie Watts, and Sammy Rucker are citizens of the United States, according to what they signed on to. So all those Moors on the fringes talk about they're not citizens. Well, they're not following Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and they don't understand Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And it says, propose to form a corporation under an act of the General Assembly of the State of Illinois entitled An Act Concerning Corporation, approved April 18th, 1872, and all acts amendatory thereof, and for the purpose of the organization, if I'm not mistaken, we hereby state as the above wit. The name of such corporation is Moorish Temple of Science. Now, I want y'all to follow me closely here. The object for which it is formed is to uplift fallen humanity and to teach those things necessary to make men and women better citizens. Hence, it's a civic organization at this time. It's not a religious organization at this time. So all of those chasing the Secretary of State, what should they be working on? Civics. Because when the prophet formed at this level, it was a civic organization. It still was religious, but legally, it was a civic organization. Let's see. Hey, I'm sorry I got to raid on your parade. It is what it is. I mean, it is what it is. Now, with that being said, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali would then go a step further. From a civic organization, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali would then go a step further, and what he would do next, let me go back here real quick. because I couldn't show you over this side. Oh, yeah, I blew it up over there. It's the same thing. What he would do next, he would go from a civic organization to a religious corporation. And when the prophet goes from a civic organization to a religious corporation, what does he do? What do he do? He documents it. 1 second. The state of Illinois, the county of Cook. Where is he at now? The state of Illinois and the county of Cook. May 21st, 1928. These are the minutes that no one talks about. I hereby certify that at a special meeting of the trustees, but trustees will be crossed out, of the Moorish Temple of Science, watch this, family, Chicago, Illinois, held on the 2nd day of May, AD 1928, at 8:00 p.m., pursuant of the rule, said corporation, the following resolution was adopted in accordance with the bylaws of said corporation. I'm going to go down because this is ripped right here, but I'm going to read what I can. I'm not going to make nothing up for you. On the 2nd day of May, let me highlight it with you real quick so you can walk with me. On the 2nd day of May, 1928, for the purpose of changing the name of said corporation, hereby make an application to the Secretary of State to change the name of the Moorish Temple of Science to what? The somebody write in the chat. What did he change the name to? The Moorish Science Temple of America. Somebody, legally, we're not talking about emotions now. Legally, what did the Prophet Noble Drew Ali change the name to? Legally. What did he change it to? The Moorish, say it with me now. The Moorish Science Temple of America. All right? That's what he changed the name to. Anything else is uncivilized. All right? Okay. Now, once he filed the application with the Secretary of State, what was the next move that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali did? The next move, let me slim it down and get my pointer right. The next move what the Prophet Noble Drew Ali did. Hold up, let me erase my stuff real quick. 1 second. The next move with the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he tells you what he did. And family, just study the Prophet. You'll be all right. He tells you exactly what he did. What did you do, Prophet Noble Drew Ali? He left his footprints clearly cut. That's what he did. He says in the article, of the Moorish Guide, 1928, he says, I'm sorry, here we go. I got to bring it back. He says in the article, since the work of the, I'm going to say it again. Because y'all think I'm playing word salad. Because you can tell when the Prophet Noble Drew Ali right. You can already tell. Let me get somebody in the comment section. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali never was a part of the ancient Canaanite temple, nor was he a member of the old Canaanite temple. I take all debaters. Anytime you're ready. That's a farce. That's a fantasy. And that's it. Since the work of the Moorish Science Temple of America was largely religious, the organization has been legally changed to a religious corporation. So now it's no longer a civic corporation. It's now a religious corporation. And how is that established? And an affidavit to this effect have been properly, one of the key words, properly filed in the county of Cook County, in the Cook County's Recorder's Office of Illinois. Now, let me run it to you real fast. Since the work of the Moorish Science Temple of America was largely religious, formerly it was a civic organization, the organization has been legally changed to a religious corporation, and an affidavit to this effect has been properly filed. What religious corporation document was filed? This is what people like to call their authority on the back of your Quran. Your questionnaire. This is a religious affidavit corporation form right here. All right. And this is what the prophet filed in the county of Cook to establish the Moorish Science Temple of America as we know it. So it unfolded from a civic organization to a religious corporation that still exercise the power of civics by the way of your religious rights. So this is the document where people call our authority. This is the final document that the prophet put on the record in establishing the Moorish Science Temple of America as the Moorish Science Temple of America. So, when someone says who is the real Moorish Science Temple of America, the only real Moorish Science Temple of America is the one that we establish that is modeled after the example of what Prophet Noble Drew Ali gave us. Now, the only thing that survived our Prophet Noble Drew Ali and Emiliel is the Sheikhhood. What is the Sheikhhood? The Sheikhhood is the trustee board that the prophet made Emiliel a sheikh, and those who have been made sheikhs after Emiliel is the only thing that survived. Because those who left Emiliel and created their own thing, they wouldn't be a part of the sheikh board, because as you can read at the back of the document right here, the trustee, let me blow it up for you. The only surviving trustee that could pass it down, let me get it for you. The only surviving trustee that could pass it down would be Emiliel. So the only one that survived, Small Bay, crossed the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Lovett Bay crossed the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Foreman Bay crossed the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. The only one that was faithful to Noble Drew Ali and the Moorish Science Temple of America as an organization and as a sheikh board was Emiliel and his family. So the only thing that survived as it relates to the full unfoldment of the Moorish Science Temple of America was the sheikh board. Administratively, it literally went defunct. Administratively, there was other movements created, but they didn't come through the sheikh board of Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And I challenge anybody on that want to have a civil conversation about it. The only one, and Emiliel tells us, if you want to know where the leader or the power is, look on back of your questionnaire. The prophet got the lineup there. And the only one that had remained faithful to the prophet was Eliel. And the only ones that remained faithful to Eliel was his family. And so the only thing that remains is the sheik board. So anyone who is made sheik, divine minister, after the line of Eliel, if you want to consider that your rite of passage, then okay. However, that's really not your meal ticket, because you must be entitled to the name of faithful. You must be. In other words, you got to take your place in the affairs of men and demonstrate what the prophet demonstrated, if you understand what that is. And so the real Moorish Science Temple of America has yet to reemerge. We must build it from the example that Prophet Noble Drew Ali left us. Anybody claiming to be the original Moorish Science Temple of America from the time of the prophet, I implore you to tell them, please show me a charter with the prophet's signature on it that passed down to you. There's not one exists. I don't have one. No one has one. Because it gets back to my point. We can only establish this from the blueprint, not because somebody passed us down from like George Washington all the way up into Orange Head. No one passed this down administratively. So everybody's out here, whoever's saying that they're it, they're lying. And nothing holy comes out of a lie. Remember, the prophet said this is a holy and divine movement. Why are they lying, though? Why are they lying? And see, I came to grips with the common sense of this. If all of these people are saying this stuff in their lives, then there must be an alternative of how to build the Moorish Science Temple of America. And I declare that alternative is to look at the blueprint that the prophet gave us and build it ourselves. Why do we think that we have to have some man connected to the prophet Noble Drew Ali administratively to give us permission to build the Moorish Science Temple of America? Man, we done put ourselves back in slavery. Either we gonna build this organization and metamorphose it into a nation, or we gonna sit around and talk about, I'm the real boy. No. Ain't none. Ain't none. Either you're gonna build it or you're not. That's it. The thieves have stole everything. They stole everything. There is no trust. In other words, a trust means that something is left for you. There is no trust. The only thing you're going to have is your hands, your wits, and your strong spiritual sense to know that we got to build it ourselves. And maybe pass it on to our children, and maybe one day we'll say we are a full-blown nation. But until then, it's fantasy. It's internet fantasy to believe that someone can hold the power and the force of a holy and divine movement predicated and founded on lies. These people talking lies, they cannot, and they are not the Moorish Science Temple of America, because Allah does not back liars. Allah do not back liars. And they are emphatically lying, claiming to be the Moorish Science Temple of America extended from the prophet. They're emphatically lying. And I challenge them to say, show me your ADAP papers. Show me Kirkman Bay ADAP papers from Prophet Noble Drew Ali. In fact, show me his credentials from Eliel. In fact, show me a charter that Eliel gave him. In fact, Show me a charter that was passed down from temple number 9 that was put there by the prophet that is held by a leadership somewhere else. Listen, that stuff is fictitious fantasy, and it's all cultish at the end of the day. Again, the only real Moorish Science Temple of America is the one that the prophet created and the one that we will model after the prophet and bring it to the people. That's it. That's it. If it's not modeled after the prophet, it's not a Moorish Science Temple of America extended from the prophet. The only titles in the Moorish Science Temple of America that is sanctioned by the prophet is Grand Sheik and Chairman, not Supreme Grand Advisor and Moderator. That's not a leader of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Not Supreme Grand Advisor and Grand Sheik. Nah. There's only one, and that title is given to us by the prophet. So with that being said, my time is up. It's 4:30. I would like to go in a little bit more, but let me stop right there. Family, at the end of the day, we're going to build it or we not. That's the bottom line. We were going to build it or we not. And you can't build it if you don't know the blueprint. You can't build it. If you accept somebody being Supreme Grand Sheik and Moderator, you can't build it. Because that's not the position. If you accept that there is no Supreme Grand Council, then you cannot build it. You're inequipped to build it. Because we understand the Supreme Grand Council need to be there to be the checks and balances of what is Moorish and what is not, what is Islamism and what is not. It need to be there. If you don't have that, you cannot build it. It's impossible. You can play Barbie doll more, you can play more Ken and more Barbie and all of that stuff and Playhouse, but you cannot build a nation not understanding the parts that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali put together. You cannot. It's impossible, and that's the end of it. So with that being said, I'm going to get out of Facebook right now before they troll me, and I'm going to close out our class. Family, know this. You are welcome to join anytime that you want to. All you got to do is send a request to join Noble Temples at gmail.com, and our assistant secretary or secretary will get back with you. And hey, next thing you know, you will be receiving a link to come in and join us on Sunday or Friday, whatever. And if you want to become a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America, do the same. Join, but come here to build something. You know what I mean? Build yourself first. You know what I'm saying? Build the God in you first. You know what I'm saying? Before you try to build anything else, build the God Allah in you first. Then we can go together and build something as a collective. But just remember, God ain't backing no lies, and people out there lying. So with that being said, family, I'm going back to class. I'm going to shut this down. You're welcome to join anytime you like. Join Noble Temples at gmail.com. Peace.